So one of the reasons why we love those innovation stories in hindsight is that we were not able to predict that would happen that way. And so they look nearly magical. So we all want to be magicians. So we want to do it, we look for recipes to be magicians. But the reality of what I've uncovered is that most of those stories actually did not happen that way at all. There was no magic to them. They actually looked a lot like things that would not work, if not absolutely wrong at the very beginning. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We hear about the laser. There are books on the laser about it being destined to become great, until you know about the first story of the laser, which I talk about in the book. And the first story of the laser was a side project in an industrial lab done with discretionary funds, using a particular kind of material that people had discarded or rejected as being valid to build a laser. You can think of that as an anecdote, but it still is the first laser. And it still took 20 other years to figure out what to do with it. It may sound like ludicrous considering that you cannot live without the laser today. But the same happens, then we do all these distinctions as if we focus so much on the outcome that we make distinctions that make no sense. So you would expect that the way Greenpeace, which was an enormous innovation, enormous social innovation, emerged, would have been very different from the way the laser worked. Well, apparently not. It was also a side project from a bunch of people that had a loose idea of what they wanted to accomplish. They wanted for people to know the world was in danger, as stated by numerous references. But the way they actually became Greenpeace is effectively not unlike how the laser started, which is they brought about a number of pieces together. In this case, it wasn't a material or a flash lamp or something, which is what the laser did, but it was a fishing boat, a ham radio, and an idea, which is to stop the United States from testing nuclear bombs near Alaska. That's insane. I mean, like, this is not just people look for radical ideas today and for social ideas and so on, but let's be clear, if someone comes to you with an idea, even today, that they intend to stop the US government from testing some kind of bomb someplace with a fishing boat, that's just preposterous. It's not radical, it's not exponential, it's not any of those things, it just sounds preposterous. So most of these ideas, when they start, they look preposterous or just wrong. They don't look fancy, they don't look rosy. We spend a lot of time trying to teach people how to pitch ideas, and that's certainly a skill you need. But what's important is what do you do when next? It's not so much what you pitch. And what you do next, you need to understand that your idea at first sounds preposterous, but there is always a way to make it happen in some way. So the skills you need comes back to an analogy I like to draw with people is that we all think we know how to innovate. We also all think we know how to play an instrument, say violin, which I'm learning now with my daughter. It's it's easy, right? You put the violin here, right? You put your hand someplace, you move the bow, and your fingers move, and a melody emerges. And yes, that's actually how you play violin. Actually, that's how someone else plays violin. It's not how you will play violin. The way you will play violin is by realizing first that you don't know how to coordinate those two arms in that way. At first, as you put your fingers on the fingerboard and you're told how to do it, it feels profoundly wrong. Actually, not so much that when you actually need to get to the last string, and I discovered this myself the hard way, it actually hurts. So it's actually wrong. Now, common sense would tell you you should not put your hand this way because it does hurt. And the only reason why common sense would tell you that is because your prior set of experiences is inadequate for what you come next. Unfortunately, the way we're teaching entrepreneurship and innovation worldwide and the way this has come to the surface, it's like people are trying to give you a lot of common sense recipes. But those don't work because what you're going to do is something radically new for which there is no prior experience. You will be the first expert in that, you and your team, however you want to put it. And so common sense turns out not to be a good guide. And so we need to change that. We need to find other ways. We need to find evidence. We need to find, it's not just data. You need to persuade yourself that you're not delusional, right? Because common sense is going to tell you you're delusional, so you need something else. And that's how it starts. One way another way I normally tell people this is that most of the recipes out there are telling you things like common sense. They are having you mesmerize over the fact that some companies started out in a garage. Well, I'm asking you to think twice about that. Those people had a preposterous idea, right? They had no resources. Where else would you have expected them to start, right? So I'm inviting you to think about this in a more, if you want, simple way. Of course you started there. You started where you have it. In a company, you may start with a group you already have. Maybe a garage, maybe something, but it's not about the garage itself. It's that you start with whatever you have. So instead of obsessing about how romantic it looks to start from a garage and then start with common sense ideas, how about you do it the other way around? Start where you have and don't be worried that your idea doesn't make any sense at first. Try to figure out how to make sense of it, and as you do, that's how you actually innovate. Back to the violin. In the violin, what you normally do is you start, you try out the melody comes out at the end after a lot of practice and a lot of mistakes. So effectively, you learn by being wrong, you are productive at it, the skill, the practice gets you there, and what you need to know is how to practice. It's not how to come up with rosy innovations, right? It's how to produce them or do them, which is a slightly different skill.